What's up, Vibe Ranters? Good to see y'all another beautiful Wednesday. Love all the names in the chat here. Brenda, Liam, Cosmic Fern Tree, Peaceful Penguin, Kabir. Who else we got out there? Shout out in the chat. You guys are awesome. And I think probably the ones who are here, they're feeling the same way as me. A bit bored with the political pro wrestling matches and the questionable loosh harvesting events happening in the mainstream. So we're not here to talk about that stuff. We're here for the entire purpose that the InnerVerse channel exists, which is to share authentic inspiration, push you forward on your creativity and how that creativity is your actual real spiritual journey above and beyond anything else going on. What's up, Katriana? 100% agreed. 100%. And okay, probably half the time, maybe more often than half the time, when I kick off a Vibe Rant, at least some person in the chat is like, I love this intro music. What is this? Where can I get this? Well, you can get it here because VOLO is the guy who made it for me for this show. And I really appreciate that. It's been working beautifully for us. It totally fits the vibe. And I can't believe it's been 2 years, but tonight we've got Oliver Brusca himself, aka VOLO, gonna hang with us, share some of his adventures over, maybe the last 2 years or at least recently. What's up, Maya Rose? Holla. Music is the key to set the whole world free. I'm into it. All right. What's up, Oliver? It's good to see you again, brother. You looking well.
It's great to see you too. You are too. I can't believe it's been 2 years. It's really trippy to think about. It's already been 2 years since the last time.
You've made so much music since then.
Just try to keep it going. Yeah.
So what
like a never ending.
Where are you at right now?
Right now I'm in Arcata up in Northern California. I actually just got back into the States a couple weeks ago. I was traveling around Southeast Asia for the past 5 months. And so I'm just kind of landing and reintegrating back into California.
All right, man. You ready to just lay it on us with the adventures of traveling around Southeast Asia? What's up?
Oh my gosh. I started in Indonesia and was there for 2 months, then Thailand for 2 months, and was bouncing around quite a bit, maybe spending a month in one place and then would go to a different town and meet a whole new community. And each different place had its own inspirations and lifestyle. And I was kind of exploring different things that I like to do other than music while still working on music. And this whole album, CosmoGenesis, actually was able to finish while I was out there, which was nice to kind of have the fresh inspiration to keep working on it. But one of my big inspirations out there was getting into fire spinning and some circus community. So in northern Thailand, I jumped right into a circus community where we were doing 2 fire shows a week, and I got to explore, I guess, my movement expression side of music and expressing myself physically and getting in touch with fire element, which I'm realizing is really powerful for me, being my big 3 or 3 fire sign. So I think
whoa.
For me, spitting fire is like actually a really powerful, potent spiritual experience and a way for me to express with the music that I'm just
big 3?
realizing. Sun sign is Aries. So I'm Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius.
Which one's the rising?
Rising is Leo.
Dude, we got the same sun in rising. High five.
Really? Whoa.
Aries sun, Leo
Nice.
rising. All right.
Nice. Wow. Cool. I haven't met anybody that shares both of those. That's awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, dude, fire spinning is incredibly fun. I should do a little bit of that. It's kind of been a while. Got a good backyard. I do the levitation wand. That's my
the levy wands.
Those are the one that works for
cool.
Me. I've got one that sets on fire.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that I'm just recently getting into fire spinning. So I've been around it for so long, and I've been going to festivals and events where fire spinning happening, and I'm just like, oh, that's cool. That looks fun, but maybe I'll try it someday. And I never actually try it. But about 2 years ago, I went to this festival in Northern California called Fire Drums, and it was like my initiation into fire spinning. They had a huge fire circle with like 100 people in it, and it was like I was with some friends that really encouraged me to go try it out. And then, like I do with a lot of things, I just become obsessed and start practicing every day. And it just became a good way to get off the computer and to, just do something tactile where I'm focusing on something and learning a skill, but I can just be outside. And so it's been really good for me.
Fire spinning is possibly the ultimate flow state initiator.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really cool when you can, like, hear the flames and the fire around you, and you get into this trance where, like, kind of all you can see sometimes is just the luminosity from the flames, and you're hearing it, and it puts you in this trance that's really hard to describe.
Yeah, because your body super badly does not want to get fire on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and that's probably what keeps people away from trying it and like, oh my gosh, how are you doing that? But when you're actually, even if you've not really practiced a lot, you pick up something that's on fire and start playing with it. It's like the flow state just kicks in naturally because the body is so averse to being set on fire. You just kind of get in the zone right away. It's like super
Totally. Yeah.
meditative.
Yeah, totally, and I think that it's cool to encourage people to just try it, because it's very intimidating, especially if you've never done it at all. It's very intimidating to start spitting fire, but anybody can at least, do some sort of flow with it, and it's really pretty empowering. And I have these palm torches that just attach into your hands, so you don't need to know any skill based thing. You can kind of just flow and dance, and that's a nice way to like get an introduction to like having like being a firebender, because that's what it feels like.
Yeah, dude, firebenders unite. I'm
Yeah.
on team firebender too. That's super cool. All right. Well, man, now I want to know if you got like any sweet clips because you were performing. Like, can we see this? Is there a
I
place?
mean, they're very like low res, like somebody took on their Instagram at a show. Um, but there's some that exist out there.
Okay. Well, we might come back to that later. All
Yeah.
right. I mean, if I did some digging, I could find some of me. Another thing that's kind of new, and we got to talk more about the travels, but I wanted to show this off and ask you where people could potentially get it. So I have this coloring book that Oliver sent me, Synergy coloring book. So besides just making music and now being a firebender, he's okay. He's making coloring books. He's doing paintings. He's doing all different kinds of art. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Actually, I haven't started coloring it yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to. Today, I spent a good chunk of time today digging through closets and reorganizing my house to be able to have a room just for our baby that's coming, where it's just
Mhm.
for the baby. So I built this giant new shelf, and my art supplies are no longer kind of buried and difficult to get to. And now I have quick access. So I think we'll be getting back into it really, really soon.
Yeah, yeah, and the coloring books are just cool thing to have around because maybe somebody's visiting or, I mean, it's cool because they're accessible to all ages. Some people, it's not like you have to be a kid to do coloring books, and I feel like the adult coloring book thing is kind of resurged, but
Permission to
for
be
me, it's just
creative.
yeah, it's just something to have around if you can use it as a tool, if you really just need to drop into a meditative space or kind of just focus on something. It's just readily accessible focus, and for some people, it's really nice to have like some tactile thing to do that you can focus on. But I think there's a lot of interesting things to say about color and like what color people choose with these abstract designs. So I'm kind of curious to see how people color them and kind of what that speaks to about their personality and what they're feeling and what they're emitting through color on the abstract designs because they're abstract enough to where kind of any kind of color would work. It's not like there's like leaves, so you color them green. It's kind of open to interpretation.
Okay. So I want to get back to that, but my wife just shared a low res video of her firebending.
Nice. Let's see it.
Oh, wait. Okay. There she is. Jenny G,
Nice.
also
Got
a
the boy
firebender.
flowing. Heck
It,
yeah.
it's even cooler on double speed. There we go.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Because then you can really see the patterns, because it's all about learning the different patterns.
Yeah, man. And even if like fire is a little scary, that it's more expensive, but LED light
Yeah.
up flow toys are
Yeah.
also amazing.
Yeah, and you can also do just without fire too, and you get, it's still fun.
Yeah, it's super mesmerizing. It is. Yeah, fire is just like the spiritual element. I don't know what else to say about it.
Hmm.
All right. So back to the adult coloring books. That's kind of like my whole art style is to just make my own coloring book pages and then color them in. It's,
Hmm.
you don't have, I just like the idea of permission to do something creative and to just make, like, what's good about the coloring book is it gives people a chance to practice the no wrong answers approach to art, where it's kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of left brain, sort of right brain. They got a template they're working off of, but they're also making choices. Cause I think that's what gets people hung up on not starting with creativity is being afraid of doing it wrong. And it's all about
Yeah.
just pick a thing and just do a thing and then do the next thing, you know?
Totally. Yeah, it can almost I could see how it could almost be a gateway into you start coloring and then you're like, maybe I just want to make my own composition. It kind of like gets your foot in the door of feeling creative and getting into that flow state, which could then lead to you making your own artworks that are outside of the coloring book. But it's just nice because it's kind of clear on how to initiate into that creative portal.
Nervex says, we just gave my mother-in-law a coloring book and it's helped with her dementia. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. I think dementia could have something to do with people going so long out of touch with any kind of creation.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that.
All right. So I want to hear more about your circus troupe. So you're like an official carny now.
Yeah, I kind of went straight into it. This I was following this circus group in northern Thailand, and that's kind of what drew me to go out to northern Thailand in particular. And a lot of this trip, I was just like fully stoked on fire spinning. So I was just kind of attracting myself towards these crowds of fire spinners in different places. And when I got to this little town called Pai in northern Thailand, there was a existing fire spinning crew where they would do 2 fire shows a week. And so the first day I get there, I just walked right up to the place called Paradise Circus, and yeah, just really immediately felt welcomed in. There's no like tryouts or anything. They're just like they see me showing up with my fire staff, and they're like, "You want to join the circus? You want to come perform like tonight?" I'm just like, "Yeah, cool. Let's do it." I don't have to like show that I'm good or anything. They just were like they just see the medicine of it. They see how performing and letting people step on stage and sharing their expression is a healing for them as much as it is for other people to witness. So I was really grateful to be in a place that felt really inclusive of everybody to come perform. And after the show, they would have a fire jam where anybody can try out and use the props. So it was very much about how healing it was and encouraging other people to try it out and just so it wasn't as much of like an ego thing. It was more of just like a this is a cool thing. Watch people that are really developed and also like you can give it a shot too and see what it's about. So I
Like
felt
that?
really it felt nice to be in that environment.
Because in one of the problems with music culture is I think this is probably a result of like the music industry itself, but how some of the best events and highest production values are really fun, but there's also this weird like idolization, hero worship thing that goes on where like the
Yeah.
person on the stage is they're the special one. And I'm not saying that they didn't have to work really hard for their skills, but then people will point up at the stage and be like, they have so much talent. Look how much talent they have. And what they really mean is that's a word that excuses me for not being able to do what they do when the truth is actually skill. And skill is a better word because it means that you put time and effort into developing it. And so
Yeah.
I prefer to like just swap out talent with aptitude, or if we're going to say either of those words, to point out how it's a function of care and that you have the
Mhm.
amount of talent or aptitude to the degree that you care about a thing. And I like the environments you're talking about and kind of like the smaller communities of festivals and events where there's not such a big barrier, or you don't have to do like weird backroom deals to have a
Yeah.
chance
Yeah.
to perform or have some witness to your creative flow. Because I think we all have this. I mean, maybe not all of us want to be the one on stage. Maybe we don't all have Leo in our big three, but
Yeah.
the it becomes like this almost loose situation. I don't use that word
Yeah.
in maybe the typical sense of archonic beings or whatever, but there is looshing in a smaller scale. And a lot of the bigger festivals, there's totally weird stuff going on with the attention of thousands of people focused on a stage at one point, and then whatever imagery and symbolism somebody wants to throw at them, they're taking it in, maybe even from a energetically pried open state because of whatever substances they're on. So I like the smaller ones, like you're describing, where nobody dies and everybody's watching out for each other. Humans don't
Yeah.
cross over to like the locust level of swarming instead of
Yeah, yeah,
vibing.
because there's a threshold to where it gets to that other point where when the crowds become so big, and I find myself much more drawn to the smaller, kinda like family-oriented gatherings where you start to it's really cool when a festival is at a certain amount of people because by the end, you all just become a family, you kinda know each other, you're just walking around in the morning, and you just kind of feel like you don't get that as much when it becomes so many people, it gets more dispersed, and there's almost this dispersion of care towards the whole environment when there's so many people. You're just like, you got your little squad and you're kind of like taking care of your squad, but the whole rest of the people, you're kind of just trying to like navigate the
It's like
craziness of it
survival
all.
mode.
Yeah, it can definitely be like that. But when it's a smaller environment, you're all kind of, it feels more like you're in one tribe and you're in like one energy because it's like you can only handle so much. So I'm definitely more drawn to the smaller scale events, and actually haven't been to like a really huge festival in a while. I'm kind of curious, but haven't just hasn't lined up for me.
That's probably not bad. I mean, as a performer, it's different for you. It's like there's a nice set of benefits to go into something larger if you can perform. And I definitely don't would never hold that against you. I'm sure it's like probably a crazy feeling to be on a big
Yeah.
stage.
Well, and it's interesting what you say about the visuals and how that's really affecting people. Because a lot of times, if there's a festival and a stage, the people aren't seeing me or necessarily what I'm doing. They're just kind of just seeing whatever visuals the promoters decide to emanate, you know? And sometimes there's stages where it's just a cool structure that they built with some LEDs, but sometimes they have a huge LED screen where they're choosing something to show, and sometimes I don't even know what that is. I'm just playing, and then people are like, "Oh wow, the visuals were so crazy on your set." I'm like, I wasn't even aware of what that was because I'm on this side. So I don't even know what they're playing, you know. And if I had a whole set of videos, I could send it to the tech people. But sometimes I don't even. They're just kind of choosing whatever they feel fit, and I just have to hope that it is like not some weird stuff that they're playing. But I think most of the time it's been good.
Zeralath says Chance looks like he's on all the drugs tonight. I'm high on life, dude, but I do have my purple glasses on. I
Purple
got these
shades.
at a Purple Rain movie party. So, you know, I'd never seen Purple Rain before. I saw Purple Rain yesterday and they gave me these glasses. So I thought, you know what? What the hell? Let's wear them. It's fun. Dude, can I screen share your coloring book from the website? It's a better way to
Yeah,
show it
yeah,
off.
totally. Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, and the shirt. I made this shirt. I'm a high on my own supplies there, Laugh. Okay, so in the chat, I'm going to post it again. The link to this cool coloring book. Very nice looking. And see some close ups of some of the things you might get into. Very flowy. I like that. I mean, I would even tell people try to just make something like this yourself, where, as you can see, there's not really any need for, I don't know, perfection. You just keep going and putting attention and energy and time into it until you fill the space. And
Mhm.
like if you can just do that, there's gonna be a feeling that pops off of the page, no matter what you consider your skill level to be at. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it's just going, like, one line at a time and just seeing what happens and not having a plan is really interesting.
That's how I like to do it. Which reminds me of my own art quite a lot, actually. And now that I did this reorganizing, I could just pull some off. It's right over there.
Nice.
I could show some. I like this one a lot. Wow.
Yeah, that one
Super
feels
cool.
very much like some biofield stuff happening, which you might, relate to, obviously.
Yeah, dude. I want to share some biofield tuning feedbacks, reports from recent clients. We'll do that later. There's some really cool stuff that's been happening with tunings in the last month.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear how that's been going for you.
Awesome. Sarah Lath, you're cracking me up. Polymathing says something to examine with the old ways of fire at festivals being used to cook the burnt offerings and food for the people. Now the focus is on the aesthetic and experimental relationship with fire. You might still cook with fire, but yeah, burnt offerings, not so much, except Burning Man. Sometimes maybe an actual man accidentally
Burning
gets
Man,
burnt.
yeah.
Whoa, the Omphalos. That is cool, dude.
Yeah, this one has a lot of different symbols in it, which kind of just happened organically. There's like an Ankh in the top, and then
Oh,
I kind of like to think about it making sense energetically. Like somehow it's abstract, but somehow it makes sense in my mind when I'm making it. Like it would work, like whatever this weird creation I'm making, it checks out with energetics. I try to
it's
like really think
functional.
about it. It's functional, yeah. Somehow it's functional.
It's awesome. Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's like a cohesive it's a natural symmetry. Like
Hmm.
cuz digital symmetry is not the same as natural symmetry. There's always a little bit of wiggle. It's not
Yeah.
exact symmetry, but it's close enough that it gives you that feeling of balance, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's what I tend towards a lot of the time, but it's, definitely not perfectly symmetrical by any means, but I can't help myself but to go symmetrical a lot of the time.
Oh, that's cool. That's harder to do. I'll say that. Sweet, man. All right, so with your new album, when is that coming out?
The actual release date is sort of undecided. I'm still figuring out some stuff on the back end, but within um, the next month or two, within 2 months, it'll all be out. I have one more single coming out in 2 weeks, and then I think I'm going to do another release from it and then the full album. So within the next 2 months, it'll all
Okay,
be
I'm gonna
out.
see if I can play this invocation track under us talking because it's so ambient.
Cool.
And the chat can let me know if it's like the volume is appropriate to still hear us and it at the same time. I think I got it.
I think it's good. At a certain point in the song, it'll rise, but we could maybe just flow with that.
Yeah, because your music you've got a lot of range. You have the epic, cinematic, orchestral, inspirational, and then you have like the ambient music that the way I would describe it is it makes you feel like you can take deeper breaths. I don't know, it just kind of like
Mm.
calms and centers. I love that about it.
Wow, that's interesting feedback to hear about it. To take deeper breaths with it. Yeah, because it's like yeah, like a relaxing, like easing the nervous system kind of feeling.
Okay, I'm done with the purple glasses.
Yeah.
Well, everything's so normal colored. Wow. I recommend seeing the world through purple colored glasses sometime. It's
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
pretty sweet.
Nice.
So, Brenda wants to know if it's at 432.
It is not at 432.
Uh-oh. How
I
dare
did
you?
not intentionally make the whole song at 432.
I'm not
Yeah,
actually I don't actually think that the 432 thing is as big a deal as conspiracy culture makes it out to be, but that's my opinion.
yeah, I mean, I've definitely researched it and just tried it out in different ways, and I kind of just trust my um, feeling with the tones, and for me, I still feel like a very positive experience from the music. So I trust that and I go with it, and
Cool. I mean, it's really more about it being coherent and not obnoxious. I think what gets
yeah,
people confused about the 432 versus 440 is that so much of the mainstream music that they're pointing at with 440 is in other ways engineered to mess with you or just
yeah,
sucks.
yeah, and maybe the intention behind it isn't super great, and that carries forth in the music as like a medium for the intention behind, what they're putting into it.
Jenny says, multifaceted artist is inspiring that your creative endeavors broach multiple of the quadrivium liberal arts. Well said.
Oh, wow, quadrivium liberal. What is all the quadrivium liberal arts? So that would
So,
be
arithmetic, so that's number, and then right? And then geometry, just space, and then I don't know, music, which is time, and then astronomy, which is like all of them put together. I think that's
yeah.
I hope I didn't. Okay, cool. I got it.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Thank you, wife. Yeah, cool. Matt Workman. The 432 thing makes no sense to me. If we were talking about a single frequency, that would be one thing. But as an entire tuning system, like what about all the other notes? I mean, I'm definitely not knocking putting your music in 432. I'm not knocking that at all. I just wouldn't be like, I would rethink the whole boogeyman nature of 440. It's mind control, or it's like it's hurting me, just rethink that. If people want to use 432, I get it. It's like, that's a sacred number. It's derived from celestial mechanics, or at least symbolically so, from the mystery school. I mean, that's cool. Marty in the house. Marty, I thought you were going live tonight. Do you want to get on here? Do you want to come hang? Try to get Marty to come hang with us tonight. You're invited, brother. You just let me know. He's mocking me. You give me $20 just to mock me? Thank you. I appreciate that. Love you, buddy. Okay, but why I thought of Marty to hang with us is because you titled this upcoming album CosmoGenesis. So I really I'm going to back off and just give you some space to talk about what that name or that concept means to you, because it sounds cool.
Yeah, short answer is it feels right. But it's interesting because I think when I really feel back to why I named it CosmoGenesis, in a way it kind of loops back to music festivals and a lot of my music festival experiences. And I remember having these really profound moments where I would play a set and it would be great, and then I would kind of be walking around the festival afterwards, and a lot of times afterwards I'm kind of hanging out chatting with people, but then I kind of need a moment for myself just to like take some space. And this has happened at multiple festivals where I play a set, I hang out and chat, but then I need some space to myself, so I'll go walk to like the edge of the festival and find somewhere out in nature, and then it's typically at nighttime, and then I just stare up at the stars, and then I hear this. I don't usually hear a voice in my head or hear or feel any sort of like direct message that is like a voice, but this has happened a few times at music festivals where I'm walking alone and I look at the stars and I hear this voice very clearly telling me like, yo, like this is what you're meant to be doing, like no questions about it, is like, you're doing it, keep doing this, like this is your path. And it's like this resounding voice from the heavens. It's very like deep and it's like echoing, and I'm just like, whoa, okay, I'll try to keep doing it, And so I get a lot of affirmation in other ways from people, but this affirmation from the stars that this is what I'm meant to be doing really is this deep thing I can anchor to on like why I'm putting so much effort into this craft and why I'm so inspired to share it with people, is because it just resonates in my heart and it just feels right. But then I get this like cosmic reassurance sometime just from looking at the stars, like stargazing, and I don't know where that's from or why, and I can't say any specifics about it other than it's like undeniable reassurance. And so that's been something that really has kind of kept me going over the years. And sometimes it goes a bit quiet and I'm kind of questioned why I'm doing this, but I always have this moment of being reassured, and it's always when I'm out on a walk at night by myself looking at the stars is like when I feel most at home and when I feel most I guess just reassured on why I'm even here, if that makes any sense.
Dude, it totally does. I'd love to talk more about that. Peaceful Penguin says, "Keep up the great work. You are a huge inspiration."
Thank you.
That feels good. Thanks for the comment there, Penguin. PK says, "On shrooms?" You know, it's possible to
Maybe
have
a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I mean, sometimes that helps, but it's possible to have those type of feelings of connection just organically. Maybe a psychedelic trip or two opens the doors so that other times it comes through more naturally. Sure, I think that's all good. I know exactly the feeling you're talking about, though, where it's almost this radical experience of the now. Like, this is happening. I'm really doing this. This feels better than any other place or time I could possibly be. This is where it's at. You know, you look up to and you experience, it's like a timeless moment. You could say it's almost like you get outside of the whole chronos flow of things and you like, this is growing my soul. I'm in the subjective time now. I'm in the real time, not the looping hamster wheel, repetitive kind of like construct of time, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I think when you're in a place like a music festival, you're so out of your normal routine or loop that it almost allows for these like synchronistic, interesting moments to appear easier, you know? And so I think maybe when I'm in these environments, when I'm sharing my music, but when I'm also just out of my normal routines is when these things happen more often. Because I can be very like routine oriented kind of person. I very much like I kind of thrive in that, especially for working on these long-term projects. I kind of lock into a rhythm and a routine and follow it, but it's really important for me to deviate and to go into these environments where I'm very out of my comfort zone and sharing what I love, and it allows for these moments to give me this like reassurance and these reminders, and just very like spiritual experience that does feel very organic. And usually at these festivals, like those moments I was maybe like had some cacao, but very much I was very 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 sober.
Now that the track is over, I like miss it. It was we're having such a
It kind of felt
mystical.
like it felt fitting with the track in the background.
Oh my God, yeah. Like let's just do it again. It's a great track. I miss it already. I'm like, this was really taking us somewhere. And then where it was taking us was probably track 2, which I actually do have loaded up. Maybe we'll just do Invocation again, though. Man, what a perfect name for that track, because it started to seriously bring out of us this more mystical experience of life. And I don't know when the last time I talked about this was, but there's 2 words for time in the Greek language, or the ancient Greek language. The first one being, of course, chronos, and that's like your measured time. It's your cyclical time. It's the time on the clock. It's the time according to the movement of stars and planets and the sun, of course. And that's the time that we all agree on. It's the time that lets us be at a certain place at the same moment that somebody else is there. It's got its uses, but people in our culture really only have that idea of time. That's the only time that exists for most people. But that, because it's cyclical and repetitive, it's not exactly, I don't know. I'll just say it's definitely different than the idea of subjective time, which was what you would use as the definition for this other word, which is Kyrios, which interestingly sounds a lot like the Greek word for Lord. And this other type of time is the time that you experience your soul's growth in, where something different is happening, where there's like this novelty, where you're deviating from the repetitive, where there's why I think that this is the real time and the other time isn't so real. And they can be running concurrently, first of all. Both versions of time are happening at the same time. But for most people that are in, just the survival mode of life and doing things that they don't care about because they feel like they have to get by, clocking in and doing the same thing Monday through Friday,
being on the clock, it's like very much ingrained into like the conditioning of how people live the day to day.
Exactly. But I mean, there's always change. Like there's really no such thing as a constant sameness in life or nature. But a lot of that a lot of that Chronos hamster wheel time, it's people's attempt to freeze time. And I know they might not be thinking this way, but it's like they're doing the same thing. They're afraid to change too much. They're afraid that if they change too much, they'll lose what they have, or things will get worse. And really, that attempt at being static creates stagnant. And you watch the slow decline of somebody that is in that repetitive state. Some people can have a clock in and out and have that type of job or whatever and still have a fulfilling life and still experience the subjective time of Kyrios. But why I think that the subjective time is the real time is because it's measured by how you evolve as a soul and as a being, and how you grow, how your perspective or consciousness expands. And the real purpose of life is to, you can actually not move very far on Kyrios time. You know what I mean? You can be in the same spot in your subjective time for years potentially, even though you're doing lots of repetitions on the Chronos hamster wheel. So I like to have that idea in mind, like at all times. Like, what time is it on my subjective time? Like, am I trying to just like pretend that doesn't exist and just keep doing the same thing over and over again? Or, am I moving forward with it?
Yeah, that's so interesting because the Kyrios, it's like so similar to curious, and it seems like the curiosity is kind of what opens up that portal into this timeless like growth. And for me, I think I tend to be in a state of curiosity a lot of the time, and curious about like trying new things, going in new directions and new art forms. I'm like, what is it like to go to Thailand and start joining a circus? Like, I would never expected that for myself, but somehow it's like mostly my curiosity that led me there, which is kind of tied in with my inspirations. But I think it's interesting to follow things that just kind of make you curious and kind of question, because it feels like there's something there that makes you curious,
Yeah, and I might be kind of pronouncing it wrong. It might, you could maybe pronounce it Kairos.
Kairos.
Yeah, that's how it's spelled. It's Kappa, Alpha, Iota, Rho, Omicron, Sigma. And what they give you for the definition of it is the right moment or the critical moment. But why I consider that to be the subjective time, as this is all my interpretation of the two kinds of time, of course. But I just think it's interesting that they had another word for it, that it was all about critical moment, right moment. That's the synchronicity time. That's the right time at the right place. That's the magical timing that changes everything for you. So when you feel like your life is in perpetual flow of synchronicity, that's where it's like every turn you make, you're like seeing your inner world reflected back at you, and you clearly recognize like, oh, I was just thinking this word and now I'm looking at this word, or I just thought about this person and they called me. If you're in that as a flow, I think that you can feel like you're on the right timing, or the kairos. Maybe that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. But yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and it's like the as within, so without, when you really start to really see how your internal workings are emanating outwards. And it's you see everything as I guess a mirror. And sometimes it could be kind of tough to like take responsibility for that too, and to be like, okay, this is my reality showing me internal things, and I have to kind of like take responsibility for that in a way, and kind of really approach that like why things are showing up this way. Not that I'm like creating that in a way, but I think a lot of things we are creating our perspective of our reality, and we can also shift that at any time.
Yeah, we have tons of choice about it. It's kind of hard to draw on 5 months of unique experiences and put it into a narrative package, right? But maybe a good angle to go at recounting some of your recent adventures would be if you can think of any wild synchronicities that occurred while you were out traveling.
Yeah, wild synchronistic moments.
Or just meaningful to you. I guess wild is maybe not, doesn't have to be wild, but cool stuff.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting link with my dreams that kind of led me out there in a way, which are sort of unfulfilled in a certain way. I feel like I was having these dreams, and one of them was me fire spinning on a beach somewhere, and somehow in my mind, um, I knew that it was in Thailand or somewhere far away. And this dream really, it was so, it wasn't really powerful or very meaningful necessarily, but it felt like this calling to leave and to go somewhere new. And I had another dream that was really interesting of this underwater temple, and there was some temple underwater that was like blasting like sonic airwaves into the water, and somehow it was doing something to the water by this temple that was looked like it was an ancient ruins, but it was somehow still active. And for some reason on my mind, I was like, I feel like this is somewhere near Indonesia. And then I remember on Google trying to look for underwater temples near Indonesia, and there's like these temples that popped up that looked, or these like ruins, I don't know what you'd call them exactly, but they looked very similar to what was in my dream. So I feel like these things in my dreams kept pulling me out there, and that was what kind of led me to initiate the journey. But I never necessarily went to the underwater temple or found it, and it's still kind of like this mystery lingering. But it was enough to get me to buy a plane ticket and just start just going to new places. And I'm really curious about this underwater temple dream even still. It'd be cool to go do like some diving trips and just kind of see what I find.
Oh man. Oh no, stop. Oof. Back into like normal consciousness. Micmac says dreaming of Atlantis. There's a documentary that I just recently watched on the subject of Atlantis called The Atlantis Puzzle. And I asked the director if he wanted to come on and talk about it. I don't know if I'm going to get a reply, but it's an interesting one. I recommend it. The Atlantis Puzzle, where one of the main researchers that this director, Jack Kelly, does kind of focuses on his work. It's a dude who goes back to the actual Platonic texts themselves and translates them again, instead of just taking for face value the translations that everybody has been running with and coming up with stories based on for so long.
Yeah.
And the one that really sticks out is that there's no reference to Atlantis being an island in an ocean or okeanos. So the whole idea that it was in the ocean or sunk into the ocean is completely fabricated by people's fantasies. Like it's never, there's only one source text about Atlantis, and it's two source texts where Plato is the author of both. And in neither place does he ever talk about an okeanos. He talks about Pelagos, which is more of like an inland waterway or channel, typically in usage. I think he might also refer to a pontos, which could be a sea, but definitely no, there's no okeanos involved. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that there aren't crazy things underwater. I think that, back to the subject of CosmoGenesis, I think that the real origin is eternal. Like it's an eternal return. Like I don't think there was an in the beginning moment. I think this place and us have just always been. And so maybe things layer on top of each other, and eventually the super, super ancient is completely under the waves, and what's underwater becomes eventually above water, and vice versa, or just buried under endless layers of maybe new land or new water that generates at different points. But hey, who am I? That's just what I think. I don't think that there was an in the beginning moment.
Yeah. Eternal return. I really like that phrase and that feeling. And that's one of the tracks I ended up naming Eternal Return. And it does feel like these things are cyclical, and there is like a return that always happens. And I'm really curious with the Atlantis being underwater. I wonder where the underwater aspect of it started to come about, and when it started to be linked with like this underwater city kind of thing. And if
Well,
that's
that's kind of described by Plato in that sense, but Uh, it's just not an ocean. That's all.
Yeah,
Everyone's like
gotcha.
saying it's in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere, and it was never said to be such. So this dude, this Greek researcher that is doing the retranslating in this Atlantis puzzle movie, he comes up with an interesting decode of it all that he thinks that Atlantis was the like eastern part of Africa potentially.
I've seen stuff about there's, like, this big circle in Africa
Yeah.
where they're like, "Oh, this might have been it." I
Yeah, what is that place called?
think I watched a video about that, like, a couple years ago, and
I wish I could remember what that was called. People can just watch the Atlantis puzzle. Maybe we'll talk about that more sometime.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm curious.
but
I'll check
yeah, it's just
it out.
amazing how with just small fragments of ancient writings, people have extrapolated gigantic, like Lord of the Rings epic
Yeah, yeah,
assumptions, and they run
yeah,
with it.
totally. Yeah, but it's curious to notice the things that carry through and what the origins of those could be, and it was really interesting this dream of this, like, temple that was really it was like a sonic emitter, and it was emitting, like, music, but it was through the substrate of the ocean and the water, and it's just kind of like a curious technology to think about. I don't know if things like this exist other than, like, sonar, but to emit through the medium of water something that could be positive, for everything in the ocean, but, the same thing, I guess, happens in the air, like emitting air, things into the airwaves that are maybe like not so positive for us. But yeah, doing stuff like that into the water is interesting, and like it's almost like you're imprinting things into the memory of the water, and then that could be maybe held and like return at some point if somebody can like tune into what was at one time emitted into the water, and then we can like pick up on that and then translate that. I'm not so sure.
So Joe Potter reminded me. It's called the Rishat structure, RICHAT. That's
Structure.
what it looks like.
Wow. It's very
It's
curious how it's so like the rings of it.
yeah, it's really weird, super weird.
It was very strange.
The eye of the Sahara Desert. And then the other thing that that documentary goes into is like geological research that shows how maybe there was a lot more water and the Sahara was green many thousands of years ago, like way
Uh-huh.
back,
Yeah.
but not so far back that humans weren't there. So,
Yeah. So it was like more of like a paradise kind of spot, possibly.
yeah,
Wow.
I think
That's amazing looking.
it's pretty crazy. Super cool. Yeah, so what about like mm, the cultural aspects or the spiritual aspects of things you encountered on your travel?
Yeah, it was very different in every place. Somewhere I was really drawn to was Bali, and the spirituality in Bali is like so upfront and so potent, and just feeling how the density of temples and how it's so a part of their culture to be putting out offerings like multiple times throughout the day, and how they're and just seeing how the culture was so dedicated to offerings and to their spirituality, where when I grew up in the states, people go to church and or people have their own practices and spiritualities, but it was so integrated into their lifestyle there. And I just remember waking up in the morning and going outside, and they have like some flowers that they just picked, and they're putting some incense sticks with some little crackers, and they put this offering there, and you can really feel the like heartfelt intention of it, and it felt uh, so pure in so many ways. And it's interesting also to be there and to feel the contrast of all the tourism and just all the people there too, and the modernity of it. So you have this like density of like spiritual attention with all the people and all the tourism that's kind of um not centered around it, but people are there kind of to get a feeling of that too, because maybe they haven't really been around anywhere quite like that. So it was just very interesting to be there, especially Bali. And I went to this one guided waterfall ceremony experience that was actually really powerful for me, where you're kind of given a guide to lead you through all these different spots in um, it was like a nature-based shrine where they had different deities, and they would give you like 10 different offerings, and you would put one offering at each shrine that was for a specific. Also one section where they had multiple waterfalls, and each waterfall had like a different purpose it served. Where one of them was like an emotional release waterfall, where you go into the waterfall and you're letting the water just like pummel you, and then you're supposed to just like let out any emotion, any sounds, and so you kind of like yell or have this big release, and they call that like the emotional release waterfall. And then you go to the next waterfall, and this is like the happy joy waterfall, and you're supposed to like do a dance or just kind of have some like joyous celebratory expression there. And so you're kind of going through all these spots, and by the end of it you just feel like this really clear energetic cleansing that happened. So that was like a really interesting um, experience to go through, and I think it's somewhere that they've only opened to tourism within the past 20 or 30 years. So it felt very there was still a lot of locals going there as well. It wasn't just like a tourist trap kind of place that was just only tourists there. It felt um, very real to the local culture. So that was a really it really brought up a lot. Like my dreams the next few days were very emotional, and very just the water element became so prominent, where I was feeling very emotional. I was kept having dreams where everything was like underwater, and like water just became the very present element in my life. Which for me, it just ended up being super emotional. And I was in this new place where I was wanting to be social and hang out, but honestly, a lot of my time in Bali, it was like me hanging out in my Airbnb, just like processing emotional stuff and like just kind of like having an internal experience in like a hyper social, dense place, because I think just being there brought up so much within me that I think like I needed to go there for it to like emerge. Like somehow I think me being led to Bali was so these things could emerge and be processed in me. And it wasn't necessarily like a super fun, exciting time. It was like, yeah, kind of unexpected, deep, emotional, watery processing that was kind of aided by the the way they approach their spirituality and these like nature-based healing practices, which were very, yeah, I just super powerful, like more than I anticipated.
Dude, yeah, getting pummeled by a waterfall
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
clear intent to do some emotional release. That would do it. I mean, just touching flowing water out in nature has a powerful grounding effect, probably more powerful than any other way that you could ground. And so then to have like the flow and the volume of the water, the density of it, like crashing on you and through you, that would definitely have some psychosomatic effect. That sounds great.
yeah. And there was they also had like palm readers there and energy healers that were local Balinese priests, that it was kind of part of the experience where you could do the ceremony and they would guide you through. Then before or after you could do like an energy healing and a palm reading, and they did astrology and numerology. So they had this whole package of all this different stuff you could do that felt very cohesive, you know, because if you're having stuff brought up energetically, then you can actually like physically go to the waterfall and like release it, you know. So it felt very yeah, they were offering a lot there, and I did the whole thing. I was like, I'm here, I'm doing it. I'm gonna I'm gonna really show up to this. And I think I had like a slightly like unsure, skeptical, like, is this just a tourist trap kind of thing? But what my experience what from it was super powerful, and I'm glad I went. And
So
yeah,
the
just
priests were good. Like they did it, they were accurate or helpful. I'm
yeah,
kind of curious
yeah.
about that.
Yes, there was this lady, and she was she was weaving together some different things. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but she did a mix of looking at my astrology and my birth date and almost like some astrocartography kind of stuff where she was kind of telling me places on the globe that would be positive for me, and then she kinda let me lie down, and she was, like, putting her fingertip in, like, very specific points on my body. It was, like, almost doing this light languagey kind of chanting some, something that I didn't really recognize, but she I just remember she had this, like, very pointy, sharp fingernail, and it was almost like she was very strategically, like, targeting a meridian point and then, like, doing these chants, and I was having these, like, vibrating kind of reactions to it, and I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. It wasn't like a huge release, but like energy was for sure moving and I could really feel it. And I did this before the whole waterfall ceremony. So I feel like a lot was kind of brought up in me. And she kind of asked me some questions about my life and really specific life experiences that um, really dissipated any sort of skepticism I had. Cause I'm like, damn, like this is such a specific event that you just asked me about that there's no way like you are definitely feeling into something in my energy field because there's no way you could just ask me about this really specific event that happened. So I went in like
Whoa.
sort of skeptical and had myself just be completely like shook, and I was definitely like tearing up and crying and like shaking by the end, and then ready for like this waterfall experience. So it was kind of a lot. It took me a kind of a couple days to, completely, like, land from it and feel ready to kinda go back out into the world, so, it's I think some of these places people think they can just go on vacation and have these, you know, go to these temples, but I think sometimes you really have to think about what you're, like, available to navigate emotionally and energetically. It can actually be a lot like more like I feel like I've been doing a lot of internal deep diving over the years, but I'm always just humbled by how many deeper layers of stuff that there is, within me and just within like ancestrally, and um it can be a lot sometimes.
Did you notice any kind of like shift in family members after you got back? I ask because you talk about and you mentioned ancestrally, and sometimes that can happen with energy work.
Yeah, not necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if stuff was happening and I just didn't necessarily hear about it. Um,
Yeah, I'm going to tell a story now, a
mhm.
tuning story that's on this
Yeah,
subject.
please.
So I'm even going to like screen share this. It's an email I received from a client. So this is after the session. This was this person's second session. She says, I've been feeling good, but a little out of flow and chaotic, seeing some procrastination, perfectionism habits coming up last week. A lot of things in general have been coming up for me, which needed to come to the surface. So I'm just trying to stay grounded and remind myself that it's an essential part of healing. So what she's describing right there is how after a tuning session, there's potentially like what you would call a healing crisis in the sense of something that was an issue always becomes more bumpy it almost like forces itself to be addressed and resolved. Then she says, I had a convo with my mom about the in utero diagnosis, which turns out was a massive thing that affected her right before my birth. So this is a part of the tuning where I was at the edge of her field with the fork, the part where she would have been in her mother's womb. And the information that was there was about her mother receiving some sort of bad and false diagnosis about her baby
Mm,
at that time. So that's what I asked. I was like, okay, there's some kind of scary misdiagnosis here. And she was like, yeah, that actually was a thing. My mom was told that I, as a baby or in the womb, was going to have some like mental deficiencies or problems. And they convinced her of that and yada, yada. So, in terms of how this was an influence energetically, it was related to a larger pattern of the perfectionism she's mentioning of like needing to be seen as perfect, feeling deficient in ways like that. This was right at the beginning because her mom had a big jolt of of consistent fear over like what her baby was going to be like because of this misdiagnosis. Then she
Mhm.
says, my ankle's feeling a lot better though since the tuning, which is great. That was a main thing we were working on, was a chronic ankle pain injury. Now this is where it gets interesting. She says, I had another convo with my paternal grandmother where the ancestral river stuff was coming up. And she said that around the time I got my first tuning in the preceding months, she had been going through a massive emotional breakdown, reliving a lot of old wounds to do with her marriage and father, which mirrored feelings of being a burden and ostracism. Could be potentially why this was coming up so strongly for me around this time. She also said that more recently, after my tunings, she has noticed that she's healed a lot of those wounds and has had a general feeling of lightness and has been able to confront certain people in her life, asserting boundaries and self worth. So she says, I'm not sure if this is something you've noticed before in tunings, but it seems that by clearing blockages in my field, my grandma has also cleared some blockages in her field through the ancestral river, which is insanely cool.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's something that actually occurs in sessions. Is sometimes we run into this area in the biofield about 10 or so inches off the body. There's two of them, one's paternal and one's a maternal, and it's the where it's like where the upstream and downstream influences are located in terms of like ancestor trauma or ancestor patterns. And when those come up in a session and we work on the theme that seems to be affecting everybody in the family, that it can actually downstream or upstream go and help somebody else that's on that side of the family that's going through that similar issue. And I don't always get the feedback to know, like, so how did this influence your mom or
Yeah,
your dad or
yeah.
your grandma or whoever? So when I got this one, I was like, awesome, we got to share this one because it totally does happen. But this client was just really generous in sharing specifics about it. So yeah, the ancestor energy flow thing, like we are a river of energy. It's a continuum. There's not really a
Mhm.
separation on the lineage. We're all connected. There's even like retro causality potential in a hard to comprehend way with this stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I really like to it's really interesting to think of it as a river and just you're connected through that medium and um yeah, I honestly would like to think that a lot of the deep work that I'm doing is really um I just think to like my parents, and I go back home and I show up and I'm doing all this like internal work and kind of like figuring the things that happened through my upbringing and navigating them. And it feels to me like it's sort of discouraging sometimes when I'm like, oh, like I see them making like little steps and myself trying to make also steps, but it's like um, I also sometimes come to a place of just like letting them be where they're at too and not expecting some huge life changing thing to happen.
That's
And
important.
one of my things I really feel is also to like do this work within myself so that carrying forward like the next generation, whether I have kids or not, will like be, like not have to like deal with that kind of tension that I've dealt with. And it'll kind of be like I'm like shifting that whatever has been going on through my family and just not hasn't been witnessed or addressed. Like I'm like addressing that and like seeing it and feeling it so that it can move forward in a more beneficial way. And, it seems like there's always going to be stuff to be worked through and felt throughout the river, but it's really interesting to think about the non-linearity of that and how far that goes back. And this has made me really curious about my ancestry because just recently I was kind of really curious and I asked my grandma, like, like I wonder, like, I want to know how far my ancestry goes back. Is there any interesting threads or like what like regions? And I was just so surprised at how little my grandma was willing to tell me or that she knew about how far back our ancestry goes. And I also don't know if I really wanna do, like like, one of these DNA tests. I don't know if I trust those or wanna do that, but I'm really, really curious about, like, 10 generations ago in my ancestry, like, where things were at, and,
When
I'm
my
just
dad did the DNA test, we found out about like lost children of my uncles and things like that.
wow, wow.
Like people that back when there wasn't the internet or cell phones or
Yeah.
ability to look people up, and like, someone got pregnant and then and then the dude leaves town, and surprise, you have a cousin that you didn't know
Wow.
about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be very curious to check out. Have you've done it? You've done one of the DNA tests,
I
or
before I was hip to the fact that it was being sold to Google, like way back when it was brand new, I did
yeah.
the ancestry.com. So mine
Uh-huh.
mine's out there, but do whatever you want with it. I claim all rights reserved over my
Yeah.
genetic material.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're doing things without my consent, I've already spiritually put all that on notice. I'm not worried about it. But I don't recommend doing it. I gotta
Yeah.
point out Micmac's comment here too about Bali, because
Mm.
that is definitely a symbolic name for Yad-Heh Vav-Heh in the Old Testament, aka Jehovah or God.
Mhm.
There's like a specific verse even where from the words of God it says, "Thou shalt no longer call me Bali," which means they were calling him Bali. You got to wonder
Wow.
about that.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and some people call Bali, like, the island of the gods, and it's just, like, very it's so potent there. It's really, for me, I don't think I could live there. I think it's an amazing place for me to go visit, and, but the energy there is, like, it's a lot, and for me, I feel very sensitive to it all. Even if it's, like, positively oriented, it's still, like, a lot of, like it's very dynamic.
And I also want to show, man, PK does the best research. We're going to get you back on here, man. He got all these lexicographical concordances with words for time. The other term for time or for the god of time being ion. And I didn't know this, but he's showing in this that one of the potential definitions for ion could be the spinal marrow. So there's like
Spinal marrow.
that's like your Christos raising up the oil type of concept. Super
Mhm.
cool. And
Mm.
it's one of the definitions of Kairos is God's time as opposed to man, like the earthly time or the time of the ages. Super cool. Thanks for sharing this. That's in the Vibe Rant call-in line. If people aren't in that, I think most of the people here are probably in it, but good place to share things that you might want to see on stream. We haven't been doing that as much lately, but we ought to. It's on me. Yeah, this is good. And then of course with Bali, there's Baal, right? That's another one of the terms for the sun or for the Lord, Baal. And
Mhm.
I mean, I don't see any problem with it all being the same system at one point. That makes the most sense to me, in that the systems kind of diverged over time after they were separated, but at one point they were all interconnected. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I remember I was just really curious about Balinese, Hinduism and their spiritual perspectives, and I remember just seeing this one line that they wrote where they said, something along the lines of, "Just like many paths, one truth," and it was almost like they were very much honoring different traditions, and they're very welcoming of different um, religions and spiritualities to all also be there, and just also they were seeing the perennial nature of it all and how they're all like the same truth. So like you can go your path, and we're not like turned off by that. We're just like, yeah, you're doing it your way, we're doing it our way, and we're both going towards the same truth. So it's kind of cool to see places that I guess also see it that way.
PK wants to know, how did the locals call it? Did they call it Bali?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. They don't have a different word for it or a different way of pronouncing it.
I mean,
Hard to know.
they could. I mean, a lot of a lot of locals I met just say Bali, but maybe I'm mistaken, and there is another word that they would use.
So should we listen to the title track off of here?
Sure, you can play it. The title track is CosmoGenesis, so it's like track 5 on the album. It kind of gets into a bit more cinematic kind of stuff.
Cool. All right, let's do it.
and I had a vocalist friend of mine, Zana Prana. She added some vocals on, which are really beautiful. So shout out to Zana Prana.
This is an exclusive preview, everybody. Sweet. Look at some Balinese temples while we listen.
Nice, perfect. And right there, you can start to hear the next song start to come through, and this whole album, I'm excited about because it plays through seamlessly. So it's kind of like one whole listening experience. There's not like a hard cut between each song. So I'm really
Oh,
excited to
that's
release the whole thing, and it's going to be just like a whole like 50-minute like one. It's like it's kind of one song, but and I would like to just release it all at once, but just I'm trying to work with how the streaming services work and release a couple singles. But my main intention for this was to be like one whole experience that you listen through as one thing, you know, and um,
that's the
I'm really excited
best.
about that. Yeah.
Man, I miss that in the album experience is like kind of gone. I would say it's gone away because like here you are doing it, but it's not that not that common anymore. That's why I when I listen to music on the streaming services, I like to look for like a DJ set or at least something where things flow together. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm really curious when I put music out how to best, because I can put stuff out on streaming services, but I really want to put stuff out to be like with the intention of listening to it as one experience, you know. And with streaming, people are going to stream it however they do. And sometimes it just shows up with a single song, or, you know, sometimes people aren't really inspired to sit with the whole album on streaming. But if you have the record, or I was looking at some video where people were saying that like tapes are starting to reemerge too. And I think people are really appreciating the physicality and the experience that comes with that, of just you kind of have to just let it play through, you know. So I'm curious just like how to, 'cause I want that for, like I want to present this in a way where it encourages people to listen to it all as one experience, you know.
Yeah, like go into a dark room with headphones on and like meditate
Yeah.
through it. Make it oh, it's like a
Yeah.
guided journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was like my really my intention for the album, was to create like an experience that plays through. And so I'm excited when I'm gonna try to make some cool YouTube video visualizer thing with the whole thing playing through like seamlessly. And yeah, I'm really excited to get to that point when I can share the whole thing.
Awesome. I'm
And
gonna play another
it's
one just
yeah,
under us a little bit here.
cool.
This is Illuminata. Yeah, you can tell by the way it comes in. It's like it was already going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's more.
Illuminati. Ooh, where do I join? It's cool.
Yeah,
The-
it I actually ended up renaming the name of that track, because I sent you the files that don't have the. I switched some of the names, and for some reason Illuminata like really felt right, but then I was like, oh shit, this is so close to Illuminati. So I switched the name because it was so close. But
no, you should
for some
keep
reason-
it.
yeah.
Keep it. It's like when the grimoire puts a picture of the Baphomet in front of the information to scare away people that are in fear. You know, like
Yeah.
what's there to be afraid of with a word? You
Yeah.
know, it's all good. I think it sounds great, but you do whatever. That's fine. Oh, this is cool. I just feel like big exhale. Yeah, you bring in the light. Absolutely. Nick Mac says. And one thing that when we're talking about Bali that is worth mentioning is how it's so they're Hindu there currently, but like earlier they were more Buddhist, and you can tell in like the temple architecture. Really, Hinduism is like a growth out of Buddhism, right? Oh man, I almost can't talk over this. It's too good. Turn it down a little. And the Buddhist texts are called Pali. And so Bali is a good example of the interchange of the letter B and P in language. It happens all the time. And so when we this is just a personal theory, but for example, Palestine is Pali, and Stan is like place, basically. So it's the place of the Pali. I think that's related to the word palace, which is wisdom, in my opinion, or the Hebrew word pala, which means like miracle or wonder. You know, the Palatine Hill in Rome, there's your pala. I wonder if one of the reasons why Palestine must be destroyed, you know, at least in the global narrative and all the stuff that's been going on for many years, is because so much of the world power system is predicated on Mosaic history being in some way authentic. You know, it's not exactly as extreme as it was hundreds of years ago, where the kings and queens of Europe were tracing their lineage back to fictional characters like the sons of Noah. But it's still kind of on the same level of, like, this is where their credibility came from originally. And you pull the rug out from under the historicity of the Mosaic law and all that. And all of a sudden you're like, what else are you lying about? So I wonder if, I don't know, but I wonder if there's any like cultural memory of the Palestinians that connects them back to Buddhism and demonstrates that the Hebrew religion is just an offshoot of Buddhism. Because that's what I think it is. I think that they migrated out of the Buddhist religion at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about and to explore.
Like, why else would in the Old Testament in Hosea God say, "Don't call me Bali anymore"? Like, why were you calling him Bali? That's the name of the god over there.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. It's really interesting to be in Chiang Mai in northern Thailand, and I was staying in this place they called the Old City, where they have, I don't know how many Buddhist temples are there, but there's so many within this old city block. And so I was just kind of doing what they call like temple hopping, where you'll just go walk around town and you're just like, okay, here's an amazing ancient temple within this modern place, but they really preserve all these temples there, and they're still it was just amazing just to really feel the history there, I guess, and how they're really preserving it, and it's still very active. And yeah, I felt very inspired in Chiang Mai in northern Thailand.
I'm really vibing to this, dude.
Nice.
This is so good. Hold on a second. Just listen. I'm going to get up for a second. And to the max. All right, why not? Let's have another one go. I have one other one loaded up. Cool. Why not? This is so fun. Because we were looking at your coloring book, I wanted to show and tell some of my stuff similar.
Is this one of your pieces?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hard for me to see where it's at on the camera, but I'll make it big.
Wow. The geometry of it is so nice. There's all these like pathways that, wow, there's some interesting stuff going on here.
Doesn't have the symmetry of your coloring book. I like that a lot about your thing.
I'm so curious what's going on in the top left with the sword and like the dinosaur dragon. And when you're putting these things in, do you have like a narrative that's going on, or are they just kind of
depends on the piece.
Yeah,
this is an unfinished one that I haven't got back to for a while, but this is like my most recent effort.
Yeah, wow. So nice. I love how you also appreciate like the density of it, and I like art where you can like really sit there and like really dig out all the little pieces and things happening. Wow,
yeah, so you don't have to be like trained. You can just go nuts doodling and it'll be a thing. It
When
can
you
do
make
that.
those, do you do just all the outlines and then you color it in? So you said you kinda treat it like a coloring book where you just do outlines, then you just are like, "Alright, now I'm gonna just" you don't do, you start out with just, like, the structure with
Sometimes
pen?
I'll do the whole outline first, but most of the time I kind of do some lines and then color those and then draw around those and then keep going. So
Uh-huh,
it can be
uh-huh.
mix and match. It's like, do I feel like adding color right now or do I feel like drawing lines? That's the question that
Yeah,
comes up. I have a feeling I'm going to be getting back into it more thoroughly soon.
yeah,
I've been kind of off it for a while, but like after this conversation in particular, I'm remembering just how important it is for my like mental health to have that kind of outlet. Sometimes I'll
yeah,
make the excuse and say, "Oh, podcasting's creative. That's cool." Or like writing stuff is that counts, but like you're showing us how healthy it is to just explore lots of different things. You're doing fire, you're doing music, you're making coloring books. You probably got paintings around that you could show us that you've done, somewhat recently. Awesome stuff.
yeah, and that was kind of my intention for the book being called Synergy, because I feel like all these art forms are a synergy and they all inform each other in a different way, and pigeonholing yourself into one thing, it kind of
It
it
puts you
feels
on the
like
Chronos wheel.
yeah, it puts you on the wheel even if you're doing something cool and creative, just the fact of, like, you're boxing yourself in has an effect on your state, so I think I've had this a lot with music where I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing music, I'm doing it all the time. Why am I not feeling great?" I'm, like, doing this too much, honestly, to where it's kind of having, like, um it's having a negative effect, and so I really have to be mindful of the balance, and for me, I am drawn to so many different creative pathways that I can find more of it like a synergy if I'm doing many different pathways at once, and it's really tricky to navigate that because I also really like to see it through the to the depths, and like really I want to make a project and I want to make it to the best of my ability and I really want to commit to it, but then I'm also have other things I want to commit to and I'm just kind of like how to figure out the timing and how to like balance like my time management, I guess, and all like just keeping my body healthy and just like my social life and all these things. But for me, it feels like I need to have different creative outlets. And when I'm making music, it's very visual. So like some of those artworks I do are kind of because I'm making this one song so much, I'm like, I want to like draw what I'm feeling from this song. And sometimes it's just like this abstract sort of thing, but it really is helpful to have different mediums and they kind of they're like there's an interplay and like an exchange going on between them.
Yeah, it's like one year when you switch from one to the other, you're still processing the one that you left.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Like when I'm working on music for like when I'm very focused and then I go to art, like my subconscious is still like playing those songs, so it's whether I like it or not, my music it's gonna influence whatever I do afterwards.
I think Yvonne in the chat just joined my Patreon. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And a Fiverr super chat. Yeah, appreciate you so much. Hey Oliver, did you see the Vibe Rant with the source cards guy? The
No,
mystical
I
playing
saw
cards?
it that the title caught my eye, but I haven't checked it out yet.
Okay, do you want to I want to look up your source card. I
Oh,
want to see how
please.
it reflects you. So,
Yeah, is this
what's your birthday?
April 1st, 94. A
Nice.
fool's baby.
Okay, so it's I'm looking it up. So it's just
Never
based
heard of
on
this.
your birthday. It doesn't even matter the year. And then you get
Okay.
cards based on your that like reflect your personality. Okay, so you got 7 of spades. Let's pull that up.
Ooh, I like spades.
7 of
I like
spades.
sevens too. 7 spades. That feels nice.
It's really funny what it shows, like because at the top of the page it shows sort of the shadow and the light of the seven
Oh,
of
nice.
spades.
Yeah.
So you're like, I
Wow.
don't know, feeling accused or something, or like your inner voice is critical. But then
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the light side, it's like just ultimate harmonic creativity
Yeah,
color
yeah.
explosion.
Wow.
That's
That's I mean,
great.
it's so accurate because like, sometimes those that's just the reality of experience, and I think being a creative and having like, really trying to do how do I say this? Like, when I do creative projects, I really try to do it to the best of my ability, and sometimes that comes with, like, being very critical and, like, having, I guess, high standards, and so I think it can be really challenging as an artist to, make something that you're really proud of while also letting go and not, like, being s too self-critical.
Okay, so your personal patterns for Seven of Spades, living with a joyful, uplifting generosity of spirit, a gift to always see the other side and offer insightful perspective, super psychic and trusting your inner knowing as your perfect guidance. Or, if you're not doing well, are you snarky and mean and verbally cutting if you're in a shadow state? Or like
I
maybe
don't know.
used to be, or did you have the dark rainy cloud over you sometimes? Or
I can
weirded
get
out by paranormal experiences?
paranormal stuff, yes. I can get in moods. I can be kind of, like, in a moody state, and it's almost like my melancholic, like, artist state where I'm just very, like, not in a bad mood, but I'm just very, like, um, I don't know how to describe it. It has, like, a melancholy, like, overcast tone to my life, which isn't terrible, but it's something I have to be aware of sometimes.
Okay, so career patterns, it says you're a master of your craft, a genius at what you do. That check.
I like that control knob with the productivity. It's like, yeah, it's a funny visual.
A gift for seeing how systems and processes can be optimized for maximum productivity. Is your music production flow like that?
It's actually really funny because whenever I work with somebody in person, they're just like, "Yo, like, what the fuck? You're moving so fast." Because I know the keyboard shortcuts, and I used to be a gamer, so I, like I click and I move my mouse really, really fast, which it helps me to, like, think of all my time playing video games is, like, being put to use for what I do now. But I work really fast, and it is really kinda helpful because it lets me translate my ideas really quickly, whereas if I'm not moving fast enough, I kinda lose it. So it helps to kinda keep me in the flow state, of producing, but yeah, I do like to work fast. I like to go
Well,
fast.
Seven of Spades looks like it's reflecting you pretty well. That's cool.
Cool.
You
I like
technically
that.
get two cards, but I'll let you explore that if you're curious. I just was wanting to know. And then Jennifer posted in the chat that I never promote this enough, but since we're talking about art, I actually have a merch store. So let's look at some of this. Why not? There's some cool stuff on here. All right. So let's go down. Okay. You may have seen me wearing this
Ooh,
hoodie.
I like that hoodie, the blue.
Oh
It's a
yeah, it's
very
really
a very
comfortable.
a very electric feeling.
You can get one of these.
Whoa, I'd
You
rock
will
that
feel
for
super
sure.
powerful. Repping your favorite podcast. I got some puzzles. This is a sweet puzzle to do.
Ooh, puzzles, that's a cool idea.
Let me make it big, make it bigger.
Wow.
Okay, it doesn't want to get bigger than that. But these puzzles are like this is a challenging puzzle right here because there's so much homogeneity of color and tiny
How many
detail.
how many pieces is it?
I think they're I think they're 500 pieces.
Nice.
But because of so you could do it in one sitting, which is great,
Yeah,
but you're gonna have some challenge with it.
for sure.
I also really like um phone
Like
case
the
is
hat.
cool. I currently have that phone case. Not all of these pieces of merch I actually have beta tested, full disclosure. Like this, I have this mat. I don't like how it printed out so much. I need to do some revisions for it, but I can for sure vouch for the puzzles. So that's what we're going to stick to. The puzzles are great. These are super fun.
Samurai eye. Nice.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. One thing that I often do is I put in I do an I Ching divination for the piece of art,
Uh,
and then let that kind of inform it a little bit occasionally.
that's a cool idea.
The cards I got for this one were, gosh, I think it's hexagram 59 or 60. What number is that? Oh, it's 48. Okay. The well. Then I got a 2 of swords on the regular tarot. So that's over here. There's two blades. But yeah, dude, these puzzles are wicked. They're super worth it. Good gift too. If you have a puzzle liking person. Anyway, we're gonna update this merch store. I have so much more art than what's represented on it.
Yeah, you
And
got a ton of stuff on there.
yeah, maybe some of the pricing could be revised too, but it's InnerVerseMerch.com if you want to check that out. Support your favorite podcast.
I'll definitely be checking it out.
Cool, man. So anything else you want to talk about or promote to people while we're hanging? It's been fun.
Yeah, I've just really appreciated being here, and I appreciate that uh, you just like you understand art, and you are appreciative of art, and like you're like a patron of the arts. I feel like it's so important for people to just for artists to be like just recognized in the effort that goes into living this sort of lifestyle because it takes a lot, and I try to really support all my artist friends, so it's cool to have people that really are supportive of artists. And yeah, I'm really grateful for all the support I've had over the years, and for you having me on and you supporting me. And yeah, as far as like stuff, I my album releasing is the main thing I'm focusing on at the moment. And my website is VOLO vibes at G or volovibes.com, and I have links to all my stuff there. Um, so that's my main focus at the moment. And yeah, all my
Bandcamp's a good way
music's
to support
on.
you too, right?
Yeah, Bandcamp is like probably the most direct way to support me if you want to purchase the music. I have all my singles on there, and on my website, I have my whole discography on my website. If you want to like have like all of my music together, um, it's under my downloads section, and I have like some
Oh
sample
yeah.
packs, and I'm also starting to do Ableton lessons for people and long-term creative mentorships, which has been a new thing I've been exploring. I'm working with 2 people right now, and it's been really amazing to work with people that have like long-term goals of making an EP or something, and helping them go through that whole process rather than doing just a one-off lesson where we're just kind of like exploring some little skills, like going through the whole process of what it takes to craft an album from start to finish, the mindset of it, and also just all the technical skills that um, you need along the way. But yeah, I'm doing Zoom call um, lessons and mentorship, mainly focused in Ableton and music production, but also DJ stuff.
So
Um,
you're asking for one-on-one sessions, $50 an hour to do a Zoom. I think you could go up. Your skills are very
you think it's always,
valuable. You know,
it's
that's like
always so
the
hard for me to decide, like on a
oh,
just
I
a
know.
price. I'm
It's like
still
it's
like feeling out the field of like what's normal on that kind of stuff.
yeah, but I mean, you priced it however feels right, but I always like to tell the creative types who are also really generous of spirit that your pricing should reflect um not just what you think an hour is worth of your time, but also the what would support you best for your entire lifestyle to be able to be the person that you are without having to like switch or get yourself in the zone or like
Yeah,
recover from
yeah,
the not enoughness or the inauthentic parts of life. You
for
get what I'm
sure.
saying.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that
And it's
you're
interesting for me, like coming back from Thailand, I got really used to the cost of living in Thailand, and then coming back to California, I'm like, whoa, okay. To
oh
like
yeah.
get a house to live out here and like pay for rent out here is a whole different situation than in Southeast
Totally.
Asia. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
I'm trying to
you got
make
a
sure
telegram too. VOLO vibes
Oh
on
yeah,
Telegram.
I
That's
do
where
have
I
a
find out
Telegram
about all
too.
the new music.
I've been trying to transition off of Instagram and just kind of do more stuff on Telegram. I just really, yeah, have been over time more and more just like not wanting to be on Instagram, but I still have people on there. So it's been hard for me to figure out how can I most effectively like communicate with people and also um, just be careful of like what energetically doesn't feel good for me to take part in, I guess. And so I'm trying to figure it out. And I do like Telegram. It feels very more like direct and um, still like email too. Like I on my website I have you can sign up for just my email list, and that is also I always send out email updates. I'm still very much just like an email person.
Cool, man. I should be doing that. I always think like, man, wonder how I would do if I was using an email list. But that's just it's not my thing. Maybe
Yeah,
someday.
we
I mean, it's
find
cool
what
for
works
people
for
that do
us.
it. That's
Yeah.
great. But you know, I appreciate everyone that hung out with us tonight, even while there might have been like more enticing, explosive, sensational things to be talked about. You know, like especially with the astrology of the last couple of days, with the whole Mars Uranus algol conjunction, it's very intense, you know, and the collective energy has been quite invasive into all of our fields. And to just reorient ourselves or ground ourselves back into the real meaning of life, which is life, aka creation, that I think that's very healthy. And I appreciate everyone that took the time to chill with us tonight and get into the VOLO vibes. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks Chance, and thanks everybody for being here and supporting and listening to the music. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll catch you guys all later and have a great evening. Much love.
Peace,
And
peace.
I'm just going to play one of these songs again and put yeah. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Enjoy.